Hello, today we are going to discuss the Victorian age, 1837 to 1901. But first, before we do anything, we must fill out the essential question on the C notes. How are the Victorians different from the Romantics? Well, we're going to see a big difference as we move through this very short PowerPoint. So what do we need to learn first? First, we need to learn what was going on, who they were, who was writing, what were they writing about, and themes of the day. So the most important information we have is Queen Victoria. She ruled from 1819, or she lived from 1819 to 1901. Her reign was from 1837 to 1901. She had, up until her great-great-granddaughter, she had the longest reign in British history. Now she has been surpassed by Queen Elizabeth II. She became queen at the age of 18. She was graceful and self-assured. She also had a gift for drawing and painting. And this is a portrait of her here that you see. Throughout her reign, she maintained a sense of dignity and decorum that restored the average person's high opinion of the monarchy after a series of horrible, ineffective leaders. From 1840, Victoria married a German prince, Albert, who became not king, but prince consort. After he died in 1861, she sank into a deep depression and wore black every day for the rest of her life. Now, honestly, I'm going to tell you, Albert theoretically was a cousin. He was not a first cousin. He was a distant cousin, but he was related. So this is why you tend to have some people in royal families that go mad / crazy or have recessive genes, things like that. So during this time, June 20th, 1837, Queen Victoria took the throne. 1838, Charles Dickens wrote Oliver Twist. August 1st, 1838, slavery is abolished in the British Empire. That's throughout the whole British Empire, which is a very large area. So we will be talking about that later. September 1845, the Irish potato famine begins. April 5th, 1847, world's first man-made public municipal park opens in Birkenhead, Merseyside. And over here, our picture is actually just a layout of the map. May 12, 1848, the Irish nationalist John Mitchell arrested for treason. He published a journal calling for Irish independence. You remember they were really actively trying to kill the Irish. And 1848 is when the famine ended. May 1st, 1851, the Great Exposition opened at the Crystal Palace in Hyde Park, London, and there we have a picture of it. That is what that looks like. It later burned down. March 28, 1854, Britain and France declared war on Russia. Crimean War begins. One of our poems is going to be about the Crimean War. December 14th, 1861, Prince Albert dies of typhoid. He had played an important role in the scientific and intellectual life of Britain. He is the one who pushed for the Crystal Palace. And the Crystal Palace actually was an exhibition center for industry. He pushed to get the steam engine. There wasn't a steam engine before this. Trains ran with coal and everything, and he pushed with that. He pushed for the moving forward of science and industry in England. And he really faced a lot of backlash about it, but that's not important. He did finally get some of his way. And August 1st, 1870, Irish Land Act gives right to tenants. Remember, they couldn't own land in their own country. August 9th, 1870, women obtained limited rights to retain their property after marriage. If your husband died before 1870, sorry about your bad luck. You didn't get to keep the property, even if you had the money. May 1st, 1876, Victoria is declared Empress of India. August 2nd, 1880, education becomes compulsory for children under 10. So they stopped having kids work so much. Do you think that really stopped it? No. But you did see more kids going to school. January 17th, 1881, Sir William Armstrong's home becomes the first to use electric light. Guys, that's a big deal. Electricity, they were using lamps and gas lamps. Here you actually have electricity. January 1st, 1883, married women obtained the right to acquire their own property. Isn't that exciting? It really is for the women at the time. January 22nd, 1901, Queen Victoria dies and is succeeded by Edward VII, her son. There is something I need to go back and tell you. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Never mind. God save the Queen. The sun never sets on the British Empire. We're going to forget the other notes. This, though, is really important. The British Empire included of the following countries. Included Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Singapore, South Africa, Kenya, and India. July 1st of 1997, the British Empire transferred Hong Kong back to China. And honestly, today it's causing a great deal of problems, and they knew this would happen. Due to China's communism and the freedom that people enjoyed under British rule, people are actually, it's causing riots to this day. So it's a big deal and a big issue. So who were the Victorians? They were a class-based society. 3/4 of the British population was considered working class. Women were considered property and less than men. It was difficult for women to retain employment. Prostitution was at its highest, literally. Women did work, but if there was a smudge against their character, it was almost impossible to find a respectable position. The Victorians were prudish for refusal to admit the existence of sex. Hypocritical for the constant discussion of sex. Victorians wrote about sex a lot. They did it in pornography, medical treatises, and psychological studies. Now, psychology is becoming a big deal at this time. It was called alienist. Psychiatrists were called that. So, this is where you get a lot of in-depth study about sex, but it's very one-sided. Respectable middle-class women in particular were proud of how little they knew about their own bodies in childbirth. So that brings us to two very important minds at the time. Who were they? Well, first we have Charles Darwin, who came up with the theory of evolution. And then we have Sigmund Freud. He is the father of psychology. It emerged into society at the time, and as well as the physics of energy. But Sigmund Freud is a very important person, as much as Charles Darwin is to society today. Do we agree with everything he did, or even Charles Darwin? No, we don't. However, they founded their fields. They founded it. They brought it up. They brought it into the light for everyone else. And we will hear about him throughout the year. Here are some writers. Now, we're going to read Oscar Wilde. That's why I have a little dot by him. There were Elizabeth and Robert Browning. We are going to read some poems by Robert Browning. Charles Dickens. There's Alfred Lord Tennyson. We are going to read a couple of his poems. Charlotte and Emily Bronte and Thomas Hardy. These were big writers at the time. What were they writing about? Many oftentimes wrote about sex, though in polite society it did not exist. They wrote about the realities of the day, dangers of factory work, plights of the lower class. They examined class, myth, and gender, the aristocracy, and not necessarily in a favorable light. And they got paid by the word. So many of their works are incredibly long. And this is why we're going to read, our main text will be a play by Oscar Wilde. It's not very long. A lot of the texts were really too long for us to even consider. So, themes of the day, and this is important. Victorian literature included the following themes: industrialization, class, science versus religion, progress, nostalgia, women's rights, utilitarianism. And that's what makes the most people happy. Now, guys, what I was going to tell you about Queen Victoria, and I decided to wait, I was just going to mention how, I looked it up online and she supposedly was 5 feet. I really think that she was actually smaller than that. When she was 18 and took the throne, people made fun of her because she was so tiny. And then when she married a German, it just made them angry. Um, but like I said before, her great great granddaughter, Elizabeth II, has now ruled longer than Victoria did. So if you have any questions, just let me know and get these notes in. Bye.